Good afternoon. Welcome to Teacher's Transformer and a discussion on mindfulness in daily life. I'm Ivan Prefontaine. Um, Recently, Kathy and I were in a restaurant and we were chatting about uh, had we ever Googled ourselves? And Kathy said there really, wasn't a lot on her, and I said, well, I don't think there's very much on me. I have Googled myself a few times, so we did. Turns out I have about 3 or 4 pages worth of hits that show up. Uh, Things like my blog, Teacher's Transformer, my Twitter handle, Facebook, some of my presentations in regards to mindful servant leadership, uh, my dissertation work, etc. Um, so one of the ones, one of the hits that popped up though surprised us, and it was a hit on Amazon. And I haven't published a book or anything of that nature that would sell through Amazon, so we wondered, well, what would that be? We clicked on the link and went to it. What it was a review of a poetry anthology that I'd submitted a poem to called "What Can I Do?" And it was a review of the particular anthology and a bit of a review of the poem that I had submitted, "What Can I Do?" uh, by a person who has a blog as well, Barbara Ann Mujica's blog on WordPress, and she has reviewed the anthology and the poem there as well. Uh, she commented that she really enjoyed the anthology in general and picked my poem out as one of the ones that she had really enjoyed. And we began to talk about this, Kathy and I, in terms of the context behind the poem. And it took a while for me to come back to it and recall what it was that I had written the poem about. And it was a very specific context in relationship to teaching. And also now when I look back on it, though I don't think that this was my intention at the time, to be mindful of one's words and actions as a pedagogue, whether that means as a teacher, parent, a coach, even as a writer, that to be careful. John Dewey referred to uh, the mind in his book, in one of his books, and he said we need to treat the word mind as a verb, to mind things, and to care for things, to nurture them, to nourish them. And that is a really important aspect of it. In mindfulness, we are appreciating what we're doing. We're tending to the world that we live in, tending to the people that we come in contact with. And as teachers, those people that we send off into the world that we may never see again and may never hear from again, even with social media as it is today. Um, Hannah Arendt talks about the word transform, that our words and actions as pedagogues move beyond the walls and the actual time that we exist in. The same thing can be said for authors and writers, poets, etc., that we are writing as well for people that we may never meet, will never see. And that's the case here. So it was nice to see that my poem was appreciated by someone. I want to put some context to it, and then as well I will read the poem, which I think I will do now, and then put the context to it. What can I do? On a somber day, grief and sorrow the order. A message heard. Change begins in me. I am a catalyst. Call forth a gentle spirit, give it voice. In light, love happens. Resonates, reaches out its hand, beckons others to join. Rings on a clear pond, ripples of love touch. Right cascades forth. Good people meet, good touches good. Prayer meets prayer. Love conquers hate, joins together. Good people summoned, tears catalyze. Grieve and heal as one. We are change. Be community. It is not a distant love. It is our love. Feel it. Small change is ours. We each contribute. Love multiplies, heals the world. On December 12th, 2012, I was teaching. It was my last year at Stony Creek. It was my last year as a kindergarten to grade 12 teacher. And Stony Creek holds a very special place in my heart. It was a school where I had an opportunity to teach alongside parents as their children learned in the classroom and at home, because it wasn't always just in the classroom. One of the contributing factors to the parents' involvement was that they provided parents of the day. So each day I had a parent in the classroom. On December 12th, 2012, I had a local pastor whose child was in the class, and he was a pastor at one of the churches in Spruce Grove. And as we broke for lunch, I asked him if he could stay a few minutes, supervise the students as they ate lunch, and then when they went out for recess and were supervised by another teacher, he could go. I had errands to run to pick up some materials for a science activity for the afternoon. He agreed, and I left, and about 20 minutes later I returned. The students had left the classroom and he was still there, and he'd waited specifically for me and asked me if I'd heard the news. Initially I wasn't sure that it wasn't something in relationship to the school, to Stony Creek, but it turned out it was in relationship to a school, just not our school. December 12th, 2012 was the day of the Sandy Hook killings. And what resonated with this parent was he had grown up or spent part of his life not far from Newton, Connecticut, where Sandy Hook is located. And so it really struck a chord with him. What struck a chord with me was the question around, if this can happen in a school, albeit across the North American continent, what might happen here? Can it happen here? And so he stayed and spent a few minutes with us that afternoon, talked to the students, about what had happened. It was part of the social studies curriculum to discuss current events, and this was a current event with tragic circumstances. I cannot imagine what those parents and community members went through. As we talked that afternoon, and as the afternoon unfolded, and then I finished my lesson planning after school and got ready to go home, and a poem began to percolate for me. I got home, I put it down on paper, let it sit for a bit, edited it, and then wrote it again and put it on my blog, Teacher's Transformer, that evening. Like I said, it took a while to put the context back to it. And I recalled the circumstances quite vividly once I was able to go, oh, I remember when I wrote this poem. The message from a perspective of mindfulness in daily life, though at the time my intention was not around mindfulness, rather it was around the healing process that goes with these types of circumstances, that we have to heal. We have to make ourselves whole again. But from a perspective of mindfulness, as a teacher, I need to be aware that the words and actions that I take can be seen as gifts as well, that they go beyond the walls that we exist within a school in. And David Jardine, who is a former professor at the University of Calgary, Faculty of Education, draws on Emmanuel Levinas, a French philosopher who wrote about giving gifts in an unconditional way. And when we do that, we have to be very mindful, because those gifts, we can receive them back. We can receive something back in the future. Much in the same way that Barbara Ann Majika, years after I wrote the poem and it was published, I received the gift back. So had I not been mindful, the poem was not meant to judge. The poem was rather meant as a healing, an attempt to understand, because the young man involved suffered from personal issues. He suffered from familial issues. We don't know what went into the decision that he made. It was a tragic decision on all counts, beyond anything that I could grasp or understand. So mindfulness in daily life comes with a sense of compassion, being non-judgmental, and loving kindness. That, as the Buddhists would say, there's an interbeing, that we are all connected with one another. And so it is not a distant love. Rather, it is an intimate love, even though those people are 5,000 kilometers away. We should understand that our words and actions may come back as gifts being returned to us if we are kind and show gratitude in our initial actions. Take care. Have a great day. Thank you.